freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 412 of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearmsauctions.com, where you set the price on guns, ammo, and accessories. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd. Our theme of our show today is how survivors empower others, and our guest is Shirley Watral. Shirley is the author of Amazon's bestseller, Heels to Holster. It's a motivational speaker and firearms trainer. Her book, Heels to Holster, is a memoir of how she discovered the warrior inside as she survived an abusive relationship and thrived in the aftermath. She serves as the DC Project's Florida State Director since 2020 with the mission to raise awareness among the community and legislation that firearm safety and violence prevention are achieved through education, not legislation. Did you hear me?
Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, Miss Shirley.
Thank you so much for having me on. Do you realize that you were when I was on your show last in 2020, yeah, because it was right after my book launch. That was my first interview here on Gun Freedom Radio.
I feel so proud of that. Oh my goodness. Well, this is wonderful. And that's way too many years in between your first time on the show and now, because you do so much. But let's see the cover of your book so people can feel familiar with it.
There you go.
Heels
to Holster, and you can get it on Amazon, and it was a bestseller. And it's under memoirs or domestic violence survivor, that's the categories.
Oh my goodness, that's incredible. Well, so that was, that's
she said was, though. It's not a was, it's a is a bestseller.
I like
it's not a was, okay?
Was, is, and will be. No.
I like it. So back then you were still with the DC Project, right?
I started in 2020. Yeah, that was my first introduction in DC Project. One time when everybody was in DC meeting with legislators, I wasn't part of DC at that time, or DC Project at the time. I was just visiting my nephew, and I went to the rally and haven't looked back since. And then I was asked to be the Florida State Director, and that's how I got where I am today, as far as DC Project.
Yeah,
but
it's amazing. Well, let's start with that personal story, and then we'll move our way towards what you do with the DC Project now, which is pretty dang impressive. So with this Heels to Holster, you're sharing some very, very personal, some of the worst moments of your life. And that is a hard thing to do, is to keep revisiting that horrible time, that horrible place. But when you do it to benefit others and empower others to know that you can live through it and you can survive from it, hopefully that is the upside of it. Because anytime I interview somebody that this is the topic, right? This horrible time in your life, this is the reason that I'm interviewing you. I always feel bad, and I feel like I have to, really appreciate and express my appreciation that you would continue to go back to that time for our benefit. So
yeah, my book has two parts to it. I like to focus more. I have to focus on both parts of it. And I guarantee you, when this actually happened, this was never in my dreams, never on my bucket list. I was never going to put this anywhere on paper. I didn't want to remember it. I actually didn't tell a lot of my friends about it when it happened. They knew very little. Of course, the investigation was going on at the time, so I couldn't tell anybody. Everything had to be like natural. And so I never planned putting my story onto paper into a book format. But then I retired from an office, which I held that position for 33 years, and I became general manager of a gun club. And that interested me because the turning point in my story from being what I call a victim to survivor was when I took my first firearms class. For a number of years, I just was beat down. I always took responsibility for what had happened. I thought it was my fault, and I didn't want to talk about it because of that. And then when I took my first firearms class, all of a sudden, the fact that I could literally defend myself started to increase my self-esteem. I got a little more courageous. I did some things. I stepped out of my comfort zone. And then when I became a general manager of the gun club, I also became a firearms instructor. So during the classes, I met a lot of women, and I'd share just a little bit of the story because, I figured nobody wants to hear about that. And it was amazing how many times after class, these ladies would come to me and said, I went through that. I went through something like that. And some would even say, you just told my story. And every time I heard that, my heart just broke. And it was basically heart-wrenching to hear how many women have been abused by someone they thought loved them.
Right.
Then after that, the inspiration came from not only my students, but the women in the firearms industry, because I got more involved. I would do 3-gun competitions, and they basically inspired me into putting my story into print in an effort to help other women. I mean, I wasn't planning on making any, wasn't becoming a writer. Definitely wasn't doing that in school. That wasn't one of my fortes. But just the fact that what I went through and the reason I went through it, I always believed that God brought me through that for a reason. And, I was going to figure out what that is. And the one way to do it was put my story out there and try to help other women that are going through it or have gone through it, or how to claim their life back. So that's where that started.
And, we were just discussing off air that, domestic violence, abuse of a domestic partner, that is, it's shockingly common. What was the statistic you used?
The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence says 1 in 4 women will be physically abused, severely physically abused. Let me put that in there. Severely physically abused by someone they know at some point in their life. When they say severely, they mean, stab, beat, burnt, not just verbal, not just a little shove and push. We're talking real abuse here. And that's 1 in 4 women. That number, every time I would talk about that number, just gets a lump in my throat, because I was one of those. And I tell my students this, I was one of those, that was never going to happen to me. I was born in Pennsylvania. I'm a farm girl, quiet. I did everything right. That was never supposed to happen to me. But we can't say that, especially in this day and age. You can't just say, that's never going to happen to me, because you don't know. So you always have to be prepared. Sad, but you have to be.
And, we have one daughter, she works with us. And then she has 2 littles, so we have 2 granddaughters. And so you look at those statistics and you're like, if
there's a good chance I'm going to have to go to jail one day. No, seriously. It's like, I try to look back at it. I don't
not
even
joking, because I mean, come on, we're going to defend our babies.
I don't know where to start with this, but it's like, I don't know who caused what happened. I mean, are the men the reasons why this happened? And are the women finally waking up? There's been a big change. We're starting to recognize it now. Back in the 50s and 60s, abuse wasn't an issue, right?
It was an issue, but it wasn't reported.
Was it reported?
So I think we're saying
right.
Now there's so many more people reporting
is it
what was always happening.
Right. Is it the media and everything else that's finally getting women to come out and say no and getting support? Whichever it is, it's great. It's positively good, but it's just, why did we get to that? Why are we there? Why are we having to hear these stories?
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point. Domestic violence has been that elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about for so long. And I think women that are in that abusive situation, like in my case, I had shared earlier, I felt responsible. I was always questioning myself, what did I do to deserve this? And then I felt embarrassed if I told my friends, because what would they think of me?
Right.
And I think women are starting to stand up. They're getting that self-esteem, that courage, and standing up and say, this happened to me. And just, just like me sharing my story, maybe brought someone else up to share their story. And maybe women are just starting to stand up against it and make it known instead of just something you don't talk about. I think it probably was happened earlier, but like I said, that's not talked about. It wasn't, and maybe not as much, and could be what we're going through now, financial stuff, and everything else that's going on in the world is increasing that as well. Because COVID lockdown increased the amount of domestic violence counts.
Yeah.
That
Well,
I believe.
I'm sorry about how this all happened, but I'm pleased that women are becoming strong, independent, vocal, because have we noticed in gun rights, if we had women back in the day fighting for our gun rights, we wouldn't be in the position we're in today. Women are the ones that get things done. I'm not kidding you. They really
True story.
do. They really do. I hear this every day and I see it. Women are bringing out these issues and they're bringing it out strong. And I just wish we'd have had this a long time ago,
So
yeah, and I think it's the fact that, it's kind of like in my book, I bring it up. I didn't even realize to what degree things were escalating until it just, blew up in my face. And I think it has something to do with the story. How do you cook a frog, right?
Mm-hmm.
You put it in water and you keep turning up the temperature. And I think that's what's happening in our society. We didn't even realize our rights were being taken away. And then all of a sudden, like, how did we get here?
right.
And that's the way it was in my life too. How did I get here?
Right.
And now we're trying to catch up.
Yeah, and you meet some guy and you have a relationship with him. He slowly brings out the abusiveness, and then pretty soon he's got full control.
Takes his mask off a little bit at a
full
time.
Control. And then you go, well, how do I get out of this? I a short story. I knew this girl that went to high school and she got beat up. So she told her mom that she was beat up by a bunch of black people. So the mom went to the school, raised all kinds of hell. Later, mom dies, finds out that the girl wasn't beat up by a bunch of black people. She was beat up by her boyfriend that she married and had an abusive life with for many years. Finally got out of it. But it's like, how do you get in that position? And how do you stay in that position? That's the thing that's hard for me to try to understand. And you'd have to be there to understand, I guess.
I think for just in my opinion, at some point, maybe they don't think they deserve better. That's the best they can get, or they deserve it. Because a lot of it is mental. They start playing mind games with you and say, they make it all about your fault. Well, if you would have done this, I wouldn't have had to hit you. If you would have done that, I wouldn't have had to hit you. Or, if you, that if, and all of a sudden you start believing it. Because at some point I started to believe in that, I wasn't worth anything, and that my self-esteem started diving. And it wasn't until I stepped out of my comfort zone, did something, and which was my firearms class, that I said, I deserve better.
Yeah.
And I think if we get more young ladies to say that I deserve to be treated with respect when they're a younger age, then we're less likely to see them become victims.
So
that's my goal.
I love that goal, and I support that goal. And so here's a conundrum for me. There are so many people out there that if they've been a victim of a violent crime of some sort, somehow that causes them to focus on being anti-gun. Like somehow nothing bad would have happened to me if guns weren't a thing. Then we have people with a survivor mindset like you do that understands that the gun is a tool, and in my hands, it's a tool of life-saving, self-defense, empowerment. And I wonder if there's a correlation there. A victim mindset says, oh, the tool is bad. And the survivor mindset says the tool is just a tool and I am the power behind it. What do you think about that?
I think, because I've been thinking about that, and I think that if you go, I think it's like denial. I mean, I was in denial for a while. I didn't want to believe that someone that once said they loved me all of a sudden wanted me dead, wanted to kill me. And I think that when you go through something really violent, you kind of hit that denial, and you don't want to believe that there's the person behind it did it. You want to blame it on something else. So you pick on the inanimate object, that gun, that knife, hammer, could be anything. It's not, instead of trying to make it about the person, it's about, well, it's the object. And sometimes I think it's easier to do that. It's easier to take something away than to find out what the mentality of that person is, what caused them to do that, why they, all of a sudden just, change their attitude, their minds, or were they always like that and they were just masking it? That's like you said, it was a mask that got torn off. So I think it's harder to look at the mental state of somebody, and it takes more time than it does to just say, oh, we just need to take the tool away and everybody will be fine, which is not true at all.
Red flag laws. They think that the red flag laws are going to solve the problem, and it's not, because they'll just find a different tool, because it's the person, it's not the tool.
And it's also, red flag laws can be very vengeful. They don't actually have to, you can just get somebody in trouble and say so-and-so, their mindset's this or that. And then all of a sudden your guns are taken away. Now you have to prove that that wasn't the case. Right. It's just revenge of some kind of, dispute of some kind.
Yes.
And that's the scary part about red flag in my book. I mean, yeah.
And the man who abused you, if red flag laws were a thing at that time, he could have easily said, well, if he knew that you were a gun owner at the time or whatever, he could have said, well, you're a danger to yourself. She's very depressed. She lies about things. She lied about me, right? Whatever. Or she threatened me. And so now you're red flagged, which means the authorities can just confiscate your tools of self-defense.
Exactly.
Now you are more vulnerable to the guy who's purposely causing you to be disarmed.
Exactly. And he did that in a sense, not because at that time I didn't know anything about firearms really. But when it came down to it, he tried to show marks and stuff. Cause I had bruises, I had bite marks, I had whiplash from my hair being pulled. And when I went and filled out the paperwork, he went to the police station. Then he was trying to make it, well, she did this, there was a little scratch on his arm or something like that, and blame it on me that I was the one that went off and not him. So he did that. He tried to turn the tables, and that red flag makes that easier for some people to do that.
But what you don't know, what you don't know about people like Shirley is red flag laws won't work because they only take the guns they know they have.
That's right.
Right. So if red flag laws, they come and take my guns. Which ones?
Exactly.
Here's one.
That's fantastic. Well,
it's the only gun I own. Take it.
Yeah. Your story is fascinating, and I encourage everybody to read your book and follow the amazing and horrific journey that you went through, but to enjoy and be inspired by this phoenix that rose from the ashes that you are.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, well, you so are. My goodness. It's absolutely inspiring.
It takes a lot of courage to come out with a story like that. It really does.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you, because I've shared this, I'm getting used to sharing the story more. I've shared it at different women's group. And it gets easier, but yet harder, if that even makes sense. Some parts of it get easier, but I never know when an emotion will hit. Yeah. And sometimes I don't understand it. Sometimes I'll just get up there and all of a sudden I'll just start hitting me and I'll get a little teary-eyed. And it's not that I'm up there, and I sometimes it's hard for women to understand that maybe haven't gone through it, because you never know when this is going to happen. I've taken firearms classes, self-defense classes, scenario classes, and all of a sudden I'll emotionally just start, crying. Something hit me, something reminded me of something that happened at that time. So I think it's I never know what's going to happen when I get up there to start speaking. And it's good for me, and it's also good for them, because it's personal. I'm putting my heart out there, and in that way I think it opens up to them to do the same thing. And that's why so many times after I get done speaking, women will come up and I know what you're talking about. Been there, done that. I know what it's like. And that's the hard part for me. Emotionally, that's the draining part when these women start sharing their stories. And I'm like, but then it's confirmation that's where God wants me to be too.
Right.
That's why I got through what I did.
You're not telling a story like, oh, pity on me. What you're doing is you're telling a story that tells people this cannot happen to you if you do this. If you listen to my examples, what happened to me, so that you don't have to live it.
Forewarning, yeah.
Right. So for that, it's got to be awesome that you're doing this, because
it tells them, it gives them an idea of what to watch for. But I always share this, and I was one of those people that said, why do these women stay in these abusive relationships? Why don't they just leave? If someone hit me, I'd be out of there. Miss Tough little Shirley, little farmer girl. And then when I went through it, I went, oh, I get it. That fear, mental abuse. Yeah. In my situation, the fear wasn't just at one point, it was my life. And then it was, I'm going to die one way or another. So I'm going to go out fighting. But then he threw in, I'm going to kill your parents. And I went, well, now that's a different story. Now you're talking about someone else that I love. And that changed the whole thing, dynamics of it. And that's when I let fear drive me, and I let him take over and control me. Wow. And because of that. And now I understand why women stay in relationships. And then you add kids, and then you add financial responsibility. Maybe they don't have the money. Right. I totally get it. And I wish we could help all of them, but I understand now more or less why they do it. Yeah. And maybe even why they take them back. That one I'm a little cloudy on, but I can see why. Fear. You tell someone that they're going to kill you, that has and it. They're not just saying the word. They're going to do it. That changes your response and your feeling and how you're going to act a lot.
Exactly. Well, and a lot of these abusers are narcissists, and narcissists are like magicians of twisting the minds of others, and it really is
and they're charming. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
The information he got from different businesses by coming up with some story real quick. So during the investigation, they had an informant that had to, so those people that didn't read the book, that read the whole thing right here. But he had an informant, and they had to do just like in the movies, had to wear a wire and everything else. And the things that I heard when they put that into transcript, I could only read one page at a day as I was writing the book, because it was so emotional. How much anger and hatred and how my life was really, really in danger, more than I even knew at that time. But it was very emotional there. So I understand that fear factor greatly.
What do you say to people who like to, whether they're quoting a statistic or something they heard on the air quote news, right? That, well, women shouldn't own guns because it'll just be taken away from you and used on you. So you're helping the bad guy by owning this thing. What do you say to those people?
They just don't get it. They're listening to the media, and the media makes it out to be that we're defensive little flowers. But give a handgun, we can defend ourselves. If I have the knowledge of how to use my firearm and use it correctly, that's my line of defense. And I guess if someone tried to take it away from me, that's a possibility. But I can tell you what, they're going to be hurting when they try it.
Yes.
Just because of my determination right now. And one of the things that I am working on, because it's a constant thing, we as responsible human beings do not like violence. We don't want to hurt people normally.
Right.
But I have gone to the point where my mindset, my life is worth defending. And with a handgun, whatever I have, I will defend my life.
Right.
And I think it's important just to emphasize to those people that believe that women with firearms are going to have it taken away. They need the training. They're not, I don't know how to put it. They're not as fragile as you might think. I mean, when you put someone in a fight for their life,
yes,
I'm going to hang on to that gun. I'm going to use it. And I have that mindset because some of my students would say, would you really be able to defend yourself with a firearm? I said, I hope I never have to,
Right.
but mentally I am ready to, because now my life is worth it. At one time I would say, he loved me. I didn't really want to hurt him. I can see that going through my mind in the past, but now I'm like, no, Shirley's more important now. Shirley, if someone wants to hurt me, Shirley's important. Her life is important.
And your family. And your family is important too.
Yeah, them too. And my cat. No.
So it's really clear, if a woman wants to learn how to use a firearm, or anybody wants to learn to use a firearm, they need to go through the training. They need to know when they can't pull that trigger. There's so many things, but that journey is a fun journey. Gaining independence is a super fun journey. So
it is. It truly is. You are absolutely right. And I'm going to bring a point on when we're talking about the media. The media, some people are under the impression that firearms are only used by criminals. Well, no, there's a lot of people out there defending themselves with their firearm, legally responsible people out using their firearms to protect themselves and their family. And lots of times you won't hear about those stories. The major media won't play those stories. And one of the things I started when I got into DC Project, I started to realize that, people are out there defending their life. They use the firearm correctly, but nobody's putting it out there. Nobody's making it a point of it. So on Tuesdays, I have what's called hashtag Teal for 2A, because DC Project is our color's teal. It's called hashtag Teal for 2A Tuesday. And I always post a story of how somebody used a firearm to defend themselves and their family. Lots of time it's women. Their exes are coming at them. They're defending their lives with their kids with their firearms. Or like in the one I posted today, it was a family. The woman's pregnant, her husband, their 2 kids, they're out, I forget where they're at, maybe Arkansas, if I remember right, on like a little vacation. And this two people came up and started, robbing him and beating on him. And this pregnant woman defends herself with a fire and her family with a firearm. I think that's newsworthy. That needs to get out there. Women are defending themselves and their family. It's nothing new. Go back to the wild west.
Yep.
When women are out there, the men are out hunting. They're out. The women are there protecting their homestead, protecting their families, and also providing food for their families. And I think we forgot about that, or somewhere we got a little soft, because women they knew how to handle their firearms back then. And I think we're getting back to that point.
I think we are too. And the only other thing I wanted to add about the people that say, well, you shouldn't own a gun because it'll just be used against you. To me, the way it hits my ear is that same victim shaming, victim blaming, right? Like, I wouldn't have had to hit you if you didn't X, right? Well, this guy wouldn't have, pulled a gun on you if you didn't have the gun in the first place. And it's so insulting. It is so demeaning that I can't believe that any self-respecting female person doesn't hear those words and go, oh, excuse me? Right?
But it's,
instead, too many of us are like, oh, goodness me, let me clutch my pearls. And I think you're right. And I just shouldn't ever have these brute tools around me, instead of realizing, no, that tool is what stands between me and the person who is bigger than me, stronger than me, and presenting violence towards me. So
exactly. That's well put. I love the way you said that.
Thank you. Well, that's anything coming from you towards me is a huge compliment. Thank you.
And I didn't hear anything she said.
My God.
All I say is that there should be, in every city, there should be a train station for abusive people.
Like from Yellowstone?
Yellowstone. Oh,
yes.
That train.
Take them to the train station.
Take them to the train.
It's clean. It's so clean. It's done and done, right? No coming back. They're done.
Fantastic. I don't know. I just dropped him off at the train station. I don't know where he went. I didn't, Oh my gosh. All right.
On a trip, never came back.
I love it. So let's move forward to the DC project. What you told us kind of how you got involved. It is definitely to our benefit. I am the Arizona State Director to the DC Project, and it is to our benefit to have someone with your passion, your energy, everything that you bring to any pursuit that you have is wonderful. But what drives your passion to continue to push forward that message of education, not legislation, is what is making our communities safer?
Well, just because of what it did for me. My first firearms class, like I said before, gave me my life back. And knowing how many women out there that are going through something like what I went through or have gone through it, just to have the ability for them to feel the same thing I did is what I'm passionate about, that as well as helping victims of domestic violence. That's where my passion comes. I don't want to see the Second Amendment go anywhere because it is so important to my self-defense. And not only that, but it gave me courage, it gave me self-esteem. And people on the other side don't understand that because they won't give themselves the ability or let themselves even take a class and understand what a firearm is. They don't even open up to that possibility of, oh, that's a tool I could use, But when I got into DC Project is just full of so many amazing women, you being one of them. There were so many women in the group that inspire me, and they're like my mentors, whether you guys know it or not. But you do so many amazing things in Arizona. You get, I get goosebumps thinking about it. You're talking about a woman with doing a lot of stuff, mister. You got one sitting right beside you.
Yeah, I know she is.
Thank you.
But you do so much and you're so well organized. And I'm like, when I'm learning where I'm at, because I'm learning about legislation. Kind of scary out there what you learn about legislation, because some of it you go, oh, I don't want to know that, because you didn't know it was happening. It's not all good.
No.
But learning to step out of my comfort zone, you ladies have taught me that. And I do that just about every day, whether I'm talking to people like you and getting interviewed, or whether I'm presenting some kind of discussion on DC Project, or my big thing that I just recently did, it's totally out of my comfort zone. I spoke at a press conference with Governor DeSantis on digital banking. I know.
Hard stop. Take a moment. We have to appreciate what she just said. Say that again. Shirley Watral was invited. Where?
That's true. I was invited. Yeah, to speak at a press conference on digital banking, because Governor DeSantis, we're opposed to that. And the reasons I was able to summarize it, because it was so close to the characteristics of a domestic abuser.
Mm-hmm.
The government would then have control over my finances. Yeah. They'd be able to track my moves by my finances. And at worst case, ultimately, they can control me, just like my abuser was. He was able to, I know he tracked me. He followed me places. He even had a private investigator following me. And, that fear factor, he was controlling me. And so that's the same thing we're giving the government the ability to do when they talk about digital banking.
And you said giving, we are giving the government the right to control us.
Too much control over us.
And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no,
it is an abuse. The government is abusing the citizens because they work for us, but they're turning the table around and controlling us.
And I think a lot of people, like I always thought, well, they got elected, they have our best interest. It's not that way. I'm learning it's not that way. It's just not that way. Some people are. Some people say, oh, politician's a politician, but I think there are people out there that have the America in mind. They have their whoever their region, whatever their region who voted them in, they have their best interests in mind. I think there's still good people out there in the political arena. Yeah. Some of them have given a tarnished name, but there's still good ones. You even have one. You have one. I follow him. Sheriff Lamb.
Yes.
Oh,
he's now running for something. I don't know what he's
Senator. And he's an amazing. The Constitution's the first word out of his mouth.
Yeah.
In everything he does.
I wish we had sheriffs like him. He just says it, does it, and takes care of it. Doesn't go to the
Yeah.
train station, but I know.
Yeah.
I mean, but he says what he defends.
They
the
might have
Constitution and its
one there.
people.
They might have one there
Well,
somewhere.
I
I-
can neither confirm nor deny
Yeah, there
any
you
train
go.
stations. Well, and so just talking about Sheriff Lamb, if he is successful in his Senate race, he's trying to unseat Mark Kelly. So Mark Kelly is married to Gabby Giffords of Giffords, Bloomberg-funded anti-gun. Like, that even feels like a conflict of interest, that somebody can be that close to an anti-gun lobbying group and they can run for election, and I'm supposed to
Gosh.
believe as their constituent that they're going to listen to anything that I have to say when my lane is the Second Amendment. Like, it's crazy times to me.
You're a funny girl
That's that.
because Arizona is full of conflicts with the governor and all that. I mean, the governor was in charge of the elections
I know
when she
our
was.
current governor
yeah.
signed her own "I won the election" form.
So we are full of
because she was
conflicts.
our Secretary of State previously. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to go back to the fact that Governor DeSantis, who,
Awesome guy.
who could end up being the president of these United States, invited you to come and be part of his press conferences. That is not a small thing. That is a very big and very significant thing. And some of it is definitely your life story and what you represent. But I believe he also kind of was liking the Teal for 2A connection.
Yes, let me tell you a story about that one.
Okay.
When permitless carry was going through, and they were having women testify, women and men. I was not able to attend for medical reasons, but a lot of the DC Project ladies did go. A few of them did go, and they spoke at these testifying. I think it's judiciary and financial. And then when that was said and done, I felt really so bad. I felt like I let the DC Project down because I was not able to make the trip. I'm like 6.5 hours. But I did learn one thing, that legislation happens fast. You get a call and you think, okay, can you testify in 2 days? Well, I'm 6.5 hours away. All right, so I got to change my schedule. It happens like that. It's not like, okay, next week we're going to be talking about this. It doesn't happen that way. I learned that. That was one of my lessons. But after they spoke, I was sitting here at home and I got a phone call. Like, who's this? So I answer it. Hi, this is, I don't know if I can say his name. I'll just say his first name. This is Casey with Governor DeSantis's office. And I'm like, oh, calling me? And that was our invite. DC Project was invited to the signing of the permitless carry, constitutional permitless carry that the governor was going to be signing. And he invited us. He wanted us there. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And, I'm calling Di and I'm calling Amanda, people, the founder, as well as, in case you don't know who these people are. Diane is the founder of DC Project, and Amanda Suffolk, a lot of people know her. She is the regional director for my area for Florida. So it's like, oh, the governor wants us there for the picture. So I was able to make it to that, come hell or high water. I was going to that one at least. But yeah, that was,
prop me up. I am in that photo op.
yeah. So I had someone else drive halfway, and because I had back issues, and I'm laying back in the seat, and she just had surgery. She goes, I'm not missing this. So we're like, but we made it. We made it there and back. But that was the first phone call from the governor's office. And then the second one, when I was asked, because they were going to be down in my area for the press conference, would you be interested in speaking? Once again, my eyes and my mouth dropped open, my eyes bugged out. You're calling me again. So yeah, those were those are moments I will never forget. And that's thanks to amazing women of DC Project. But, that inspired me to take that chance to do something I'm not comfortable with, to learn something I don't know anything about, except what I was taught in high school, which I forgot.
I know, right?
Right. Well, we weren't taught enough in high school. And the thing is that learning what you're learning now, you realize how things happen in the government and how corrupt some of the stuff is. And you can do something about it. They're giving you tools to do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And And the frustrating, I'll just share my frustration, and it might be everybody, it might be your frustration as well, is the anti-gun groups, which are funded by big bucks. I won't go discussing who they are, but I don't know if it's good or bad. Some people tell me I shouldn't say the name. It's like Beetlejuice, you say it too many times, I guess it appears. I don't know. But they're funded by so much money, and here we're just nickeling and diming it, trying to get enough money so we can go to Washington, D.C. to talk to our legislators. And they are doing all this false advertising. They call them, so they say it's gun safety. That what they're talking about isn't gun safety, it's gun control, but they put it under this gun safety umbrella. And it's not. Gun safety is training you how to use a firearm safely, not taking them away from responsible citizens. And that just, sometimes I just get so frustrated because they are backed by so much money and they can do things that we're doing in a small version, but we've only been around a few years. We have high hopes.
And we're kind of preaching to the choir, but maybe somebody's listening out there that will relay this, that when they, like, let's take the kids, for example. When the NRA and the other groups teach kids gun safety, they teach them what to do if they see a gun. Stop.
Don't touch, run away, tell
but they do that. And then when you're 10 years old, you can start the safety class with the hunter safety class, and you can learn to shoot a gun and go through the handling and go through the processes, the 10 commandments of gun safety, all that. Whereas the other group is saying gun safety is eliminating guns,
which is not possible.
Well, it's sort of like your pool. If you don't own a pool, why do you need to teach your kid how to swim? But if your kid goes next door and they have a pool and he doesn't know how to swim, there's some danger there, right?
Exactly.
So you never know. I mean, if we take every gun out of the country, they're not going to get them all. There's going to be guns out there. And so the best thing to do is teach a kid what to do, and teach an adult even what to do if they happen to see a gun. Because adults pick up guns that never picked up a gun and have an accident.
Right. Oh yeah.
Right? So,
yeah.
That was our life.
Everybody young, and then
when we were kids,
happening.
I was, born in 55. We were taught gun safety at 3 because guns were a part of the life, not only in our house, but our next door neighbor's house. And so we learned that. And my generation, very few accidents, but the new generation where they're not being brought out with guns, there's a lot more things happening. So anyway, that's
true. That's a good point. And then I see parents teaching their young children how to safely handle a firearm. And I think you're right. Back in my day too, they were hunters. I'd go to high school and everybody, like the old saying, they had their shotguns mounted on their trucks. Nobody stole them. Right. Nobody got shot. They were going deer hunting right after school. So it was brought up as part of them. And now in our society, we don't teach them, and schools aren't teaching them firearm safety. And I'd love to see more of that, firearm safety within the schools, because a lot of accidents, a lot of deaths come from accidents. Suicide. We need to address the suicide. Why are so many young people and older people, adults, getting into that state where they don't think there's a way out? So there's something there that we need to address, but because it takes more time than just taking away the gun, nobody wants to look at, some people don't want to look at it because they want a quick fix. And there's no quick fix, because it didn't take us, a year to get where we are. It took us plenty of years of neglect in the firearms education industry or in schools to get where we are. And then you got to look at media. Media is not helping. Just like so permitless carry, that doesn't, for Florida, doesn't start till July 1st. So Governor Newsom from California, we have over Memorial Day, there's a shooting in Hollywood Beach. 2 groups get arguing. Still don't know if it's gang related, because a lot of the shootings are gang related. Yeah. They get into it, and then, young people get shot. I don't think anybody died. I don't think so, if I remember right. But he's saying, oh, see, the Governor DeSantis signs permitless carry. Now people, they have mass shootings. I went, whoa, I didn't even, and they're running these stories. He's talking out of turn. He doesn't even understand the law didn't take effect yet. It has nothing to do with permitless carry, but they're going to run with it. The media is going to run with that. because it fits their narrative. It scares people.
Well, Arizona, we we don't have to have a permit to carry. We can carry it concealed or open, whatever. And our crime has went down
Right.
because of it.
Well,
So because a criminal doesn't know who has a gun and who
Right.
doesn't have a gun.
but they say with the media, if it bleeds, it leads. And it's like, that really is not the truth, because as you said, people all across this nation, the number is, it's got to be well over this now, 2.5 million times every year, lives are saved because of responsible we are in citizens. Well, sometimes the gun is never even like produced, and it's still, its presence is, enough to quell things. Other times, responsibly armed citizens have had to, discharge the firearm, use the firearm. Those stories, as you said, never get told. So if it bleeds, it leads was true, we would hear those as well. But really, when it instills fear, when it stokes fear, it leads. That is really closer to the truth, I think.
Right.
You're absolutely right. That is very true. And that's what they try to instill is fear of firearms. Instead of pinpointed on the criminal, on the person, they put it on the device. And look, how many times have crimes been committed by somebody who's already committed crimes umpteen times before, and they're back on the street?
Right.
Way too
So
often.
they're not addressing it. And it's because it doesn't fit the narrative. It's all about control.
So we
Just
have an
like
interesting
digital banking.
Right. We have an interesting story going to be happening as it plays on in Canada, where now it is against the law to use a gun. It's against the law to use a gun to defend yourself against a life-threatening threat. You cannot use a gun.
You have no right.
You have no right
to use a gun in self-defense.
So it's going to be interesting, if the media will tell the truth, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the next year or two.
It's just nuts.
Yeah.
We have an upside down world right now.
Right. So the criminals are becoming the victims.
Right.
What happened there?
Right. You cannot.
How dare you have shot that man who was murdering you?
If somebody shoots you 7 times, you part your body, and you can stop him with a gun. It's against the law.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. We have got to start wrapping up. Unfortunately, the time has gotten away from us, but Shirley, this has been an amazing conversation. I am constantly inspired by you. Tell folks who want to buy your book, show it to us again. Heels to Holster.
You can go to Amazon and just type in Heels to Holster, and you'll see this right there. Will come up. And also 10% of the proceeds go to nonprofits that help women recover from domestic violence, abused women's shelters and institutions like that. So Heels to Holster on the Amazon. If you want to follow me on Facebook, just look up Shirley Watral, Watral. And Instagram, you just look up Shirley-Watral-Firearms. And let's see, on my website. Oh, I'm just marketing myself, ShirleyWatral.com. So it's pretty easy. Just look up my name and you'll get anywhere. But I am, when you placed the call, when you asked me if I wanted to be on the show, I was so excited because, you got the ball rolling for me. Being the first interview that I ever done was with you, and you guys made me feel so comfortable. I look back now as we've talked, I go, wow, I guess I've come a long way in 3 years. But I just want to thank you for the opportunity to once again to come on your show. You guys are awesome, doing amazing things. You, Cheryl, and DC Project. Oh my, I just want to make Florida just follow your lead on what you're doing, because you're doing so many amazing things and you keep me motivated. Like I said, a lot of you ladies are mentors for me, and you don't even know it, I don't think. And I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And you can help people.
Welcome.
You can help people in Florida that want to be part of the DC Project too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. So if you want to be part of the DC Project, we'd love to have you ladies. Just go to dcproject.info, scroll down to the bottom, fill out the information, and I will get an email from you, and I will follow up with an email and get you going. We'd just like to hear a little bit about your story, how you got in the firearms industry, and then we'll get you going and helping us defend the Second Amendment here in Florida and all over the country. And once a year, we've gone, well, you just know, we've already been to Tallahassee a few times and met the governor, and so that was always exciting.
Amazing. And you inspire me, and yes, your book. And thank you so much for all your very kind words. And I have to say, I could not do any of the things that I do if Danny didn't do all of the things he does.
I am
So
the best luggage
he
carrier
is-
in the country.
he does more than carry luggage. But honestly, there really is, we have such a great support system around us. The DC Project is geared towards women and empowering women. But I know that if he didn't help, if he didn't hold the fort together with our businesses to let me run around and do all the things that I
Let
do,
you run around.
couldn't have.
I don't let you do anything.
Well, that's true.
But that, it takes two. It takes two. And, I can sit behind and watch, because I know that what I do is helping
Yeah.
what you do grow.
Absolutely.
So-
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Shirley. I just love you so much, and God bless
Thank
you in
you.
all of your endeavors.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Dan. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
That's super strong. Super strong woman. And we just, I'm excited about it. I mean, there might be some guys out there go, oh my gosh, we're losing control of the women. And it's like, I need help. Women, I need help. We need help to carry this message through. We need help.
Absolutely. All right. That was amazing. We are way over time. I think I say that every show, but we've got
That's
to.
because you yak like crazy.
But I do that.
Can't
I
get
have
it
the
up.
gift of
I
gab.
don't even get to talk.
Sometimes, yeah. It
Hey,
happens.
I want to thank
Sorry.
Shirley for being on the show. And I want to thank the amazing guests for being on the show.
All of
Every one of them.
amazing guests,
Yeah.
including Shirley. Thank you to our amazing listeners and viewers. If you want to view this again or any of our videos, go to YouTube, Gunstreamer, any place you find videos. Be sure you subscribe and hit the notifications button. It tells those platforms that this is content that is important to you. If you want to listen to the audio only version, go to our website, GunFreedomRadio.com. Click the On Demand tab and
Binge listen to your heart's content, darling.
beautifully said. If you want to look at photos and bios and links to all of the works of all of our guests, including a link to buy Heels to Holster, you can go to the guest tab. It is a huge resource that's ever growing with subject matter experts. And when you spend time there, we don't hate it. Until next time, we are going to pray for our nation.
Pray for our leaders.
All of them, Dan?
Every single one of them.
How about the ones you don't
Every
like?
single, what'd I say?
Maybe especially the ones you don't
What? Huh?
like.
Not
Right.
that. Not that.
Have a great week. God bless. Be good to each other.
Bye-bye.